It was a quiet night, the kind that gives no reason for concern. The streets were calm, almost empty, with only a few distant headlights passing by now and then. The air was cool, carrying the faint smell of asphalt and dust, the kind that settles after a long day. Nothing about the night suggested danger. Nothing hinted that within a short span of time, everything would change. The man stepped out of his apartment building just after 9 in the evening. He closed the door behind him and stood for a moment, adjusting his jacket. The hallway light flickered briefly as the door locked. Outside, the streetlights cast long yellow shadows across the pavement. The world felt slow and still, as if it had paused for the night. He had done this many times before. A short walk, a few minutes of fresh air, a way to clear his head after a long day. There was no urgency in his steps. His hands rested loosely in his pockets as he began walking down the sidewalk. The sound of his shoes against the concrete echoed softly, the only sound nearby. Somewhere in the distance, a dog barked once, then fell silent again. The neighborhood was familiar. Every corner, every turn, every building felt known. There was comfort in that familiarity. Comfort often creates a false sense of safety. As he walked, his thoughts wandered. Work, small plans for the weekend, ordinary thoughts that fill the mind when there is nothing to fear. His phone vibrated briefly in his pocket. He stopped, pulled it out, and glanced at the screen. A message. Nothing important, nothing urgent. He replied quickly and slipped the phone back into his pocket. That was when he noticed the side street ahead, a narrow road branching off from the main path. It was a shortcut, one he had used many times before. It cut through a quieter section of the neighborhood and saved a few minutes. During the day, it was unremarkable. At night, it was darker, with fewer streetlights and longer stretches of shadow. He slowed for a moment, not because he was afraid, but because his mind registered the difference in lighting, the sudden drop in ambient noise. The main road behind him was still visible, still active, still safe. He hesitated, then he turned. The moment his foot stepped onto the side street, the atmosphere shifted. The sounds from the main road faded almost immediately. The streetlights were spaced farther apart here, leaving pockets of darkness between them. The buildings on either side were older, closer together, their windows mostly dark. His footsteps sounded louder now. Each step echoed slightly, bouncing off the walls around him. The air felt cooler here, heavier somehow. He pulled his jacket a little tighter around himself and continued walking. Nothing happened. For several seconds, everything remained quiet. Then he noticed the flickering streetlight ahead. It buzzed softly, casting uneven light across the road. Shadows stretched and shrank as the light blinked. He kept walking, his pace steady, his posture relaxed. Halfway down the street, something caught his attention. A shape ahead. At first, it didn't register as anything unusual, just a darker patch against the darkness. As he got closer, the shape became clearer. A person standing still. The figure was positioned near the edge of the street, partially under the streetlight. They weren't moving. No phone, no cigarette, no visible gestures. Just standing there, facing slightly away. He slowed his pace. Not out of fear, but out of instinct. People usually moved. They walked. They checked their phones. They did something. Standing completely still, late at night, on an empty side street, felt wrong. The distance between them shortened. The man considered crossing to the other side of the street. He considered turning back, but the thought passed quickly. He didn't want to appear suspicious or paranoid. He told himself it was nothing. Maybe someone waiting for a ride. Maybe someone checking directions. He kept walking. As he drew closer, the figure shifted. Just slightly. Enough to confirm they were aware of him. The man's breathing changed. It became shallower. His heart rate increased. Not dramatically, but noticeably. His hand brushed against his phone in his pocket. The streetlight flickered again. In that brief moment of uneven light, the figure turned fully toward him, and then everything happened at once. The figure moved. Fast. Much faster than expected. The man stepped back instinctively, his foot catching slightly on the uneven pavement. He lost balance for a split second. That second was enough. The distance between them closed. The quiet street erupted into sudden chaos. Movement, noise, confusion. The man tried to shout, but the sound caught in his throat. His phone slipped from his pocket and hit the ground, the screen flashing briefly before going dark. He stumbled backward, his back hitting the cold surface of a wall. His senses struggled to keep up with what was happening. The calm of moments before felt unreal, distant, as if it belonged to another night entirely. The streetlight above flickered again, plunging parts of the scene into shadow. His thoughts raced. This isn't happening. This doesn't make sense. This was supposed to be normal, but reality didn't slow down to let him process it. His heart pounded violently against his chest. His breathing became erratic. Every sound felt amplified. His own breath, the scrape of shoes, the rush of blood in his ears. Time stretched. Seconds felt longer than they should have. His focus narrowed to survival, to movement, to instinct. He reacted without thinking, driven by fear and adrenaline. The world outside that street ceased to exist. No passing cars, no nearby houses, no immediate help. Only the dim light, the shadows, and the chaos unfolding in that narrow space. Eventually, the movement stopped. The noise faded. The street returned to silence. The man remained where he was for a moment, his body shaking, his thoughts disordered. The flickering streetlight buzzed overhead, indifferent to what had just occurred beneath it. When he finally moved, it was slow and unsteady. He reached for his phone on the ground, his hands trembling. The screen was cracked, the display unresponsive. He looked around, his eyes scanning the street, every shadow suddenly threatening. Nothing moved. The side street looked exactly as it had before. Empty, quiet, harmless. The contrast was unsettling. When help arrived later, the street offered little explanation. No clear witnesses, no immediate answers. Just a stretch of road that looked ordinary in every possible way. By the next morning, people walked through that street without hesitation. Cars passed by. The streetlight continued to flicker as it always had. Nothing about the place suggested what had happened there. But for the man who walked down that street that night, nothing would ever feel ordinary again.